In today's video, I wanted to show you how I did this spider design, but before we start, make sure that you prep well the nails. And I've already done that, so now I'm gonna put the form so I can start doing this first nail. Also, if you guys like to see Halloween tutorials, I'm gonna be posting a bunch of them all this week, so make sure you subscribe if you want to watch them. On this first nail, what I'm going to be doing is that I'm gonna create this French design, and to do this, I'm gonna make this small almond because it's going to serve me as a guide to later on apply the white acrylic. Now I'm gonna put the form back and I'm going to start adding some of this white acrylic, and the way that I'm doing this is that I'm making small beads and I'm slowly creating this French nail. Also, for today's tutorial, I'm gonna be doing coffin shaped nails, and like you guys can tell, they're gonna be pretty long. They're gonna be over XL size. When I do French nails, what I like to do is I apply a little bit of the white acrylic on top of the pink almond, because in that way I make sure that the nail is as strong as possible and can have less chances of actually breaking. Now moving on to the second nail here, it's going to be a lot more simple. I'm not going to be creating any type of French design. I'm going to be making this acrylic nail like I would usually do. So I'm going to apply the first bead between the natural nail and the form slowly. I'm going to push the acrylic down until I create this coffin shape. And now that I have this done, I'm going to apply the last bead. And here I'm going to make sure that everything is well covered, but it's important not to touch the cuticle or the skin because that can actually cause lifting. Now onto the third nail. Here I'm also going to do this French design, and I'm going to start by applying the pink acrylic. What I like to do here is that I apply it between the natural nail and the form, and I make sure that the sides are curvy and as symmetrical as possible, because that's one of the most important things of doing French nails. You want both of the sides to be practically the same, so I like to file them until they both look symmetrical. Now that I have this done, I'm going to put the form back and I'm going to start applying the white acrylic. And what I'm going to be doing here is that I'm going to keep applying some of these beads until I create this French design. Like I told you before, I like to apply some of it on top of the pink almond because I feel like it's going to make the nails stronger. I know that it looks a little bit strange now, but once we file it, it's going to look really pretty. And of course, I'm going to apply some pressure on the sides because you guys know that this is going to make my nail look more natural. Now onto the last nail for this tutorial. Here I'm also going to be making this French design, and I'm going to start by creating the pink almonds. So I'm going to put the first bead between the natural nail and the form so it can be strong, and I'm going to make sure that both of the sides look curvy and as symmetrical as possible. So I'm going to add another bead until I make sure that this almond is fully covered, but remember not to touch the cuticle or the skin because that can cause lifting. And just like I done earlier, I'm gonna file the sides until they look the way I like them. So when you guys take off the form, make sure that it's not ruined because we have to apply it back, and you have to make sure that it's symmetrical because otherwise what can happen is that our nail can end up being crooked. So I'm gonna finish up building up this French nail by applying some of the white acrylic. And the way that I move it around is that I use my brush and I do little taps on it until I drag it wherever I want it to go. And also make sure you apply some of the acrylic on the sides of the nail. And of course, I'm going to apply some pressure on the sides. And this is how these acrylic nails look like. Like you guys can tell, they're not perfect, but that's why I always say that filing is one of the most important steps. When I file nails, I like to start by filing the sides, and since these are coffin shaped, make sure that the sides are as sharp as possible. And this is how the nails look like after filing the sides. Now the only thing left to do is to file the surface, and I like to do this by using my e-file, but if you guys want to, you can use a regular one. Here, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be filing down these nails until they're pretty thin. And also, I'm going to make sure that the French nails are completely clean so they can look pretty and the way they're supposed to. This is how the nails ended up looking. Now everything is ready for us to do the design. Before we start, I recommend you to clean off these nails because after filing, there's always going to be some dust left behind. And if we don't take that off, that can make our design look dirty. Just like I told you, this tutorial is going to be based on a spider. So the first thing that I'm going to do on this nail is create the spider web. And the way that I'm going to do this is that I'm going to be using this black gel paint as well as this very thin nail art brush. And I'm going to first go around the outline of the French nail. I'm going to make this curvy line as well as the sides of the nail. Here, what you have to make sure is that everything has to have the same thickness, kind of. But before we move on, I'm going to cure everything for about 60 seconds. And to make the spider web, I'm going to be creating about 3 lines in each side because this is going to serve me as a base for me to know where I have to be applying the rest. And also, I'm going to make another straight line, but this is going to be in the middle of the nail. Now, to make the spider web, I'm also going to be using the same black gel paint. It's actually pretty simple. What I'm going to be doing is very small curvy lines. And also, something I have to make sure is that they have to be pretty thin. So I'm going to be using an even thinner nail art brush because it's going to make the whole process way easier for me. Also, I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm trying to connect these small curvy lines because otherwise what's gonna happen is that everything is gonna look a little bit messy and it's not really gonna make sense. And this is how this first nail looks like. Now moving on to the other 2 French nails. I'm not going to do anything on the second nail just yet. I'm going to be creating a spider, but I'm going to tell you more about that in just a little bit. What I'm going to be doing here is that I'm going to be creating the outline lines, and I recommend you to go slowly because otherwise if you go too fast, what can happen is that everything can get dirty and it's really hard to clean up black gel paint. Now that I have this done, I'm going to make the 3 lines in each side. The way that I do this is that I start on the middle and then I go to each side of the nail and then I keep doing the other 2. Like you guys can tell, they're going to be smaller and they're also going to go upwards. And just like I done earlier, I'm going to do another straight line in the middle of the nail. Before I move on, I'm going to cure everything for about 60 seconds. I recommend you to keep curing each thing that you add because otherwise what can happen is that everything can end up being mixing. So I'm going to start creating the small curvy lines, and I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm also going to follow the direction of the guidelines. So the more I add, the more they're going to go upwards. Something that you have to make sure that when you're creating these small curvy lines is to make them all as symmetrical as possible because otherwise what can happen is that everything can end up looking a little bit messy. Now onto the 4th nail. This is going to be the last nail that we're going to create this type of spider web, and I'm going to start by doing the guidelines, and I'm trying to make them all about the same thickness because like I told you earlier, that's one of the most important steps when you're creating this type of design. Now that I have this done, I'm going to be making the straight lines, and just like I told you before, I'm going to be making about 3 in each side. And I start from the middle and I go to each side of the nail. And remember to do 1 more in the middle. Now I'm going to start making the small curvy lines and I'm going to try to connect them all. Make sure that they are as thin as possible, and what I do is that I try not to add too much product because in that way it's way easier for me to be able to create this. And I'm gonna cure everything for about 60 seconds. This is how the nails ended up looking after we done the spider web. Now the only thing left to do is to create the actual spider, and I'm gonna be using this dotting tool. Here I'm gonna use the same black gel paint, and I'm gonna start by creating the face of the spider. Like you guys can tell, it's going to be this smaller circle right in the middle of the nail. And then I'm gonna create the body also by doing it the same way. I'm gonna make a bigger circle, but the only difference is that I'm gonna leave a little bit of space between because I'm actually gonna add some crystals. Now that I have this done, I'm gonna cure everything for about 60 seconds. And to add the crystals, what I'm going to be doing is that first I'm going to be adding this layer of actually matte top coat because it's going to serve me as a glue. And I'm going to start by adding the crystals on the head of the spider. And like you guys can tell, they are black crystals. In this tutorial, everything is going to be either black or white. I feel like it looks prettier this way. And now that I have this done, I'm gonna add some more circles on the body, just like the same way that I've been doing it. I'm gonna add a little bit of the same top coat, and slowly I'm gonna be adding these small crystals. And I'm gonna be curing everything for about 60 seconds, and this is how it looks like. Now we're almost done. The only thing left to do is create the small legs. And to do this, it's actually pretty simple. I'm going to be making very straight lines. The only difference is that I'm trying not to connect them. I'm leaving a little space between each of them. I'm going to be making 2 in each side. Now that I have this done, I'm going to do the exact same thing on the body, but I'm going to make them longer. Here, the most important thing is to make sure that they are symmetrical, because otherwise what can happen is that they can be mixing. And of course, I'm also going to be adding these 2 antennas on top of the head. And this is actually pretty simple. I'm basically doing these small curvy lines. And to finish up, I'm going to be adding 2 eyes using the same dotting tool, but I'm going to be using the white gel paint. This is how the nails look like after making the designs. I think that they look so cool. I love doing this type of spider web design, but we're not completely done yet because what we have to do is add a little bit of top coat. You guys know that what this is going to do is add a really pretty shine, but it's also going to protect the design that we created. I'm going to be adding this on all of the nails except on the second one with the spider because it has some crystals. And I'm going to be curing everything for about 60 seconds. And this is how the final design looks like. I love creating this type of spider design. I think that it looks really good. Also, if you guys are interested in seeing more Halloween tutorials, I'm going to be posting a bunch of them all this week. So make sure that you subscribe. Hope that you like this tutorial. If you did, like this video. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!